Hi, want to know about the lives of rich kids from cartels? Looks like you've landed on the right video. But before starting the video, can you press that red subscribe button so you'll become a part of our community? So without any further delay, let us get onto it. Number 1. Jesus Alfredo Guzman. On May 17, 1986, Jesus Alfredo Guzman was born. Consequently, he's 3 years younger than his sibling Yvonne, and very similar to Yvonne. Jesus is one of the top 10 most wanted fugitives according to the DEA because he has been involved in trafficking, buying and selling guns, and ordering murders and abductions. Essentially the entire list of crimes related to cartels. He's one of the cartel's mad dogs, but after El Chapo was captured in 2016, he became the operations brain. Jesus boosted Sinaloa's activities by building more labs and increasing the number of transportation routes. Not just Jesus and Yvonne Guzman seek a piece of their father's criminal activity. Los Chapitos has its own drug transportation business, and Empire Obedeo and Joaquin, his younger sons, are also wanted for crimes against the United States. Obedeo also supervises drug trafficking to Australia. Therefore, fortunately, the rest of El Chapo's children appear to be staying out of trouble. His oldest child, Alejandria, is now a fashion designer in Mexico and stays out of the cartel business. She has had a very privileged life thanks to her father's blood money. El Chapo's 4 oldest sons are wanted for trafficking murder, kidnapping, money laundering, and just about a dozen other charges. I mean, just look at her mansion. She doesn't seem to be regretting how she came by her wealth, and she even defends her father online. I'm a murderer because of me, because I'm beautiful because of my mother, intelligent because of my father, and I'm a killer because of my father. Imali and Maria, the twins that make up El Chapo's youngest family, were born in August 2011. With their mother Emma, El Chapo's 4th wife, they lead a peaceful and pleasant life in California. Number 2. Vicente Zambada Niebla. Vicente Zambada Niebla. Here Vicente is El Mayo's son, whose real name is Ishmael Zambada. After El Chapo's death, El Mayo gained control of the Sinaloa cartel. He's still wanted today, and it's believed that El Mayo put El Chapo under the bus so that he could take control of the local cartel. As a result, El Mayo is a genuinely brutal and dreaded kingpin. What about his son Vicente though? Vicente knew little save brutality and violence, so in his eyes, his father was the real deal, and he wanted to be just like him. Of course, El Mayo had him trained from birth so that he would inherit his blood empire. Vicente never experienced the hardships of poverty or living on the run because he was living a lavish lifestyle and flaunting his wealth to the media. As a result, when he was arrested in 2009 on Mexican soil, he was extradited to the US and pleaded guilty. Kingpins become kingpins because they don't take no for an answer, and their lust for power and blood overrules common sense. He was one of the key witnesses who testified against El Chapo and cooperated with the DEA, giving them names and details about the Sinaloa cartel in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's currently serving a 15-year sentence, and as part of his plea agreement, has returned $1 billion from his drug profits. Number 3. Serafin Zambada. El Mayo had more than one child. This is Serafin Zambada. But before moving on, don't forget to subscribe to our channel True Crime Chronicles. Although Serafin was younger than Vicente El Mayo did not shield him from the violence of a criminal life from a young age. It appears that El Mayo was a great role model for his son despite his cruelty, so Serafin became an active member of the Sinaloa cartel during his teenage years. Serafin was deported back to the United States in 2014 after being arrested in Arizona on a warrant, and there he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to bring over 100 kilograms of white powder and 1 ton of marijuana into the United States, returning $250,000 to the government. In this case, El Mayo remained free while Serafin was arrested and tried for the numerous crimes of the Sinaloa cartel. Number 4. Sebastian Pablo. Sebastian Escobar, also known as Juan Pablo to society, is Pablo Escobar's son. At the height of his criminal career, Escobar was a feared drug lord who earned $140 million daily in cash. He also butchered anyone who got in his way, and occasionally even killed the families of judges and police officers who disagreed with him. but Sebastian Pablo saw him as a loving father and was prepared to give his life to save it. On February 24, 1977, Juan Pablo Escobar was born. Around that time, Escobar rose to fame as one of the richest men in the world. But believe it or not, Juan Pablo didn't learn the full extent of his father's brutality and cruelty until he was well into his teenage years, because Pablo did everything he could to protect him and influence him to adopt his viewpoint. When I was 7 years old, he told me after he killed the minister and we moved to Panama, he told me that he was abandoned. So a man who gives you love every day tells you he's abandoned. It's impossible to criticize him, he once said in an interview. There are several conflicting messages in this, but Pablo had another issue. He believed that violence wasn't bad. He never once expressed regret for the number of murders and thousands of other crimes he committed, and I don't believe that he ever did so. Pablo believed that violence was acceptable, and whoever your parents are, they are the ones who will teach you about the world from their perspective. If they tell you that murder is acceptable, you might start to believe the same thing. Fortunately for Juan Pablo though, he was never a part of his father's world. Juan Pablo was only 16 years old in 1993 when Pablo Escobar died on the rooftop of his aunt's Medellin home, following his infamous final encounter with the DEA. It was only then that Juan Pablo realized the full scope of Escobar's horrific crimes. His initial reaction was to threaten to kill those who killed his father. But he didn't mean it, because he'd never touched anyone and wasn't going to start now. Instead, he was going to protect himself and his family in that way. When Juan Pablo and his sister Manuela and their mother Maria attempted to depart Colombia after Escobar was killed, no one would sell them plane tickets, and they lost all of their possessions to competing cartels. The Escobars moved to Argentina with their families after the United Nations refused to assist them, becoming the monarchy's family, and Juan Pablo adopted the name Sebastian. But for the model kings, it was no simple task. Sebastian Escobar was arrested for money laundering, kidnapping, and blackmailing. But he had committed none of these crimes. Rather, he was being detained simply for the fact that he was his father's son. Sebastian also experienced poverty, which Pablo desperately wanted to escape, but it was Pablo Escobar who caused his son to live on the run and in poverty. This is what happens when you progressively profit from crime. Sebastian got back on track and went from being a drug dealer to becoming an architect and lecturer. He now warns people not to idolize him and talks about living in Pablo Escobar's shadow and his father's crimes. How many murders is he directly or indirectly responsible for? There is no official record of that, but I predict that it's close to 3,000 people. Number 5. Manuela Escobar. One more person needs to be mentioned. Manuela, the daughter of Pablo Escobar, who was born on May 25, 1984. She was just 9 years old when Escobar was captured and assassinated by the DEA. But even at that young age, she already knew about the havoc her father's cartel had created, because a rival group had tried to kill the family by detonating a bomb. It left Manuela deaf in her left ear, so even though she received 1 million gifts every year, Manuela was used to living in constant fear and being on the run from law enforcement as well as rival cartels. Despite this, Manuela is the only member of the Escobar family who's never been arrested or accused of any crime. Manuela adopted the name Joanna in 1999 when the Escobar family changed their names. Joanna experienced severe anxiety and depression after Sebastian and Maria were taken into custody for Pablo Escobar's crimes, though they were soon released. She worried that she would always be held responsible for her father's crimes. Manuela even tried to commit suicide. She lives with her brother for her safety and health. Manuela is just one of the kingpin children whose lives will be forever changed by their father's greed. This is it for today. Hope you liked the video. If you did, then make sure to hit that like button. Do let us know what you want our next video to be about. Thanks for watching till the end, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.